and I've totally forgot to do that. But the Pareto principle applies to your priorities in life as well. And what that means is that about 20% of your priorities are going to produce 80% of the equity in your life. So in other words, your top 1, 2, or 3 priorities are going to actually give you the most joy and the most meaning in your life. And flip that around, the bottom 20% of your priorities are going to cause you the most issues and problems. So keep that in mind as you're walking through your priorities and what you are thinking about and what you're doing. I just want to talk to you for a little bit about what the scriptures say about priorities. That'll kind of give you a guideline when you get back on break or something a little later today and you write your priorities down and you start really kind of thinking about where you spend your time and effort at. What the scriptures say is God needs to be number one. He created us. He is got to be. There's nothing else that comes before him, and so he's got to be first in your life. A lot of people, I was counseling with a guy the other day, he made his top 10 priorities. God wasn't even listed there. He didn't even think about God as being a priority in his life. And so the thing is, God's got a way for us to live our lives. And when we try to live that way, then he becomes the priority. So we have to kind of think about him from that standpoint. The second thing that I want to share with you is your spouse. If you're married, your spouse needs to be your number 2 priority. What that means is that the scriptures say that we were 2 people and we got married and now we're 1. And so it's kind of hard not to have the spouse as the second priority if you're supposed to be 1. And but a lot of people kind of miss out on that. Third priority is your children. I separate those 2, and a lot of people say, why do you separate those 2? You know, man, you have kids, the kids are the priority. Well, you're going to have problems if your kid's the number 2 priority and your spouse is underneath that. I was teaching this a few weeks ago. A lady raised her hand and said, I'm living that. She said, the empty net syndrome is a real deal. She said, we made our kids the priority in our life. And she said, they're gone now. And she said, my marriage is in trouble. And so if you're not careful and you move your kids ahead of your spouse, you'll have a marriage problem one day. So I just want to point that out to you. But your kids are number 3. And here's why. Go back to the Pareto principle. You're going to spend a lot more time with your spouse over your lifetime than you are your kids. You're going to have your kids for about 20 years and they're gone. Hopefully you have them for 20 years and they're gone. So maybe 25. But anyway, what really is that at some point, but hopefully you're married for 50 years or longer. And so the issue is that you're going to end up, especially later in life, you're going to spend a whole lot more time with your spouse than you are your kids. So it's real important to separate those things. Work is on there. Obviously you're spending 40 or plus hours a week at work, so work's got to be a priority in your life just because you dedicate so much time to it. And so as you're thinking about the 72 hours that you're making your life, the 40 hours is also important, and you have to kind of work around that. But here's the thing. If you're not making a quality life in that 72 hours, you're going to bring that into work. Think about this. You and your spouse not getting along, or you're having some financial problems, or you're having some problems with your kids, or maybe you're just not getting along. You come to work, how does it affect you here? It obviously affects your efficiency. You're either going to be on the cell phone more, you're going to be daydreaming more, you're going to be thinking about your issues, and so your productivity goes down. So things like that, you know, in that 72 hours that you're trying to make your life every week, it really does affect how you perform at work. So you always have to keep those priorities balanced. What will happen is you'll make the top 10 list, and you're going to find that there's probably some things, when you're thinking about your time, there's some things that are really robbing you of the quality of your life. I mentioned this in a study we were doing yesterday, but what you may find is you may be spending 20 or 30 hours a week watching TV. And do you really want that to be a priority in your life? Is that one of the things that's, think about it. If you spend 20 hours a week watching TV, which is very easy to do, by the way, when you start thinking about it, 20 hours a week watching TV, that's a big percentage of your life. Out of that 72 hours, 20, 25 hours is a bunch of time. Here's what happens. It's not productive time. You know, it's just downtime where you're not really building equity in anything. You're just kind of, it happens and then it goes away. So as you're thinking about what you're doing and what's the top 10 things that are happening in your life, it's real important to be honest with yourself and look at what you're doing, and does that have any meaning in my life? Is that change? Is that investing in my marriage, or investing in my kids, or honoring God in any way, or is that helping me make a living? So think about those things from that. I just want to share a couple other things here with you. There's a lot of other things that are going to pop up in your life there as far as your priorities. It's going to include family, hobbies, church, work, friends, things like that. I know some guys who shoot. I'm a shooter, and some of these guys every weekend go out and shoot, and they shoot from February to October every weekend. Well, guess what that means? That means that their spouse is not really a priority. Their children really aren't a priority. They're in a 2-day tournament, traveling all over, and so their priority in life is their hobby. You know what? They're probably long-term going to have some issues. Long-term, they're going to have some issues with close family members. But here's what I want to point out to you. Notice what is missing when you start making your list, and I hope you're missing. I hope you are missing. You are your worst enemy. You are probably your biggest issue oftentimes. And so I hope when you start really thinking about what's driving your priorities, it's not you. It's not your selfishness and your desire to do the things that you want to do and your hobbies. I hope that's not what's pushing you. Down at the bottom, and I'm almost out of time here. Down at the bottom here, remember, balance is the key to managing your priorities. If you have a better life in the 72 hours, your 40-hour week is going to be better. Does that make sense? And I'm going to leave you with this. More money in the 40 is not going to make the 72 any better. Okay, the 72 hours that you have is not money focused, it's quality focused. It's time with God, it's time with your spouse, it's time with your kids. I was went through a divorce a few years back, but you know, it changed my life in a lot of ways, but it made me a better person. That sounds kind of weird, but it made me a better person because I gave my kids something. I didn't have any money, I was broke. I'm telling you, I was broke. And so, you ever go to the gas pump and get change out of your ashtray to put gas in your car to get home? That's how broke I was. So, you know, you make a payment on your credit card and cash advance it right back off and pay the fee. That's broke. But here's what it taught me. I didn't have anything to give my kids. The only thing I had to give my kids was my time. And after a few years, I look back and realize I gave them the most valuable thing that I had. So it really does make a difference. Okay, that's all I got today. I just want you guys to think about priorities, put them down, drive yourself. Don't let your priorities drive you. Does that make sense to everybody? Any comments or questions? No, y'all awfully quiet.
It's early.